Good morning. How y'all doing? Y'all are a little sleepy, aren't you? Okay, everybody up on your feet real fast again. I know. Don't hate on me, y'all. I just want you to love each other and be awake. So go ahead, stand up on your feet, Come on, you got it. Shake it out a little bit, just a little bit. Feel like God's still got something to say to you and I don't want to miss it. And so grab the person next to you, say, I love you. I mean it. I choose you. If you need to give them, whatever, just show them your love. Some of you dudes are like weird about it. It's fine. We're in this together. Hug 3 people right now. Just hug 3 people, random people. It doesn't matter who. All right. I love it. In it together, y'all. Okay, grab a seat. Okay, so last night was okay, right? Last night was pretty incredible. How many people, if you wouldn't mind, how many of you walked into the light last night? Would you mind standing on your feet? Is that all right? Stand up on your feet. Come on your feet. Woo! Yeah. Love it. Go ahead and grab a seat. Love it. It's good to be in the light, y'all. It's good to be in the light. And I'm going to literally hop right in. And the passage is John. We're going to be in John chapter 3 today. And he comes right out of the gate. And I just want to say this. For some of you that have walked into the light, for some of you that are trying to live in the light, I just want you to know I love this passage. It says, see what great love the Father, he's a good dad, y'all, has lavished on us that we should be called the children of God. And he says, and by the way, that's who we are. We are his kids, and he is our dad. And as some of you guys know, I'm crazy about my kids, and I love being a dad. And so some of you, how many of you remember me from last year? Remember, okay, a couple of you, yeah. So let me, I got real fast, I want to show you what it's like to be a dad. So this is I got a picture from last year. Let me throw that up last year. So that was him last year. If you don't know, we don't take family pictures anymore because we have too many kids. So that's all I got. So that's my wife, Sarah. I love my girl. So, anyway, so keep going, Matt. That's Noah and Sam. You met Sam. He's around. He was high-fiving at the doors. Levi and Ava. Sweet little Ava. Look at that. Sweet. Anyway, so, and then that's the best surprise of our lives, Luke. And so that was last year. So I want to give you a little update. And he really is the best, but he was a surprise. We were like, you're pregnant? She's like, I don't think there's another kind. Anyways, so I want to give you an update. This is, and again, we don't take family pictures, so it's going to take. This is the boys now. Look at Luke. Come on, man. Come on, like that's in, y'all, I just need to say this. I love those boys like fire. And I won't go into too much right now, but I just love them. And I wish you knew what it was like to be a dad. You will. I'm not saying, not now, okay? Certainly not at camp, all right? And so here's the deal. Let me show you the next picture. The next picture is my +1. For every wedding now, because I do so many weddings that my wife goes to some of them. But Ava's always up. Girls, you like dancing at weddings? Anybody? Yeah. And so she is, we work on dance moves. I'm okay saying that. Like, we work on dance moves. We dance. She's a dancer. If you, after this week, if you want, I might show you. I'll bring a video of her dancing. She's got some moves. But that's Ava. And I just want you to know, like, I love being a dad. I'm passionate about being a dad. And I want you to know that I can't have this morning's conversation without talking about the great love that the Father, and for whatever reason, he wants you to know that he is your dad. And he wants you to know that there's this, and I get this because there's a little bit of a problem in the room because some of you, like me, you didn't have the perfect dad. And I've shared with some of you, like I had a former Special Forces Vietnam father, and he was like a super rough, tough guy, and he did not know Jesus. And my home was crazy, and I grew up in an inner city project, and I know what it's like. I had cops in and out of the home, and all of my siblings have spent some time in prison. So I'm just telling you, I understand some of your problems with what it means to be a father, but I also want you to know, he wants you to know that he's a good dad. And maybe you've never had that, but that's who he is. And so I know what it's like to be a father, because as he's fathered me, then I get to father these kids. I get to know them and love them. And I get now, when Jesus was 30 years old and he was prompted by the Spirit, he lived up in Nazareth. Brother worked a day job for the first 30 years of his life. And the Holy Spirit came on him, is what it says. And it says, Jesus, it's time. Jesus went down and he got baptized in the Jordan. And as soon as he came out, before he did a single thing, no miracles, no preaching, no anything. And you know what the very first thing that happened to him was? Literally, the skies just like split open. God couldn't keep himself back. And like a voice, he came down and he thundered and he said, and the people around, "This is my son, and I love him." And I don't just love him, like I'm pleased with him. And guess what? He hasn't done anything yet. His ministry hadn't even started, y'all. And God just wanted you to know, this is my son, and I love him, and I'm pleased with him. I'm not pleased with him because of what he's done. I'm pleased with him because he's mine. Does that make sense to you? And so as we start to dig into this passage, I just want you to know that we can start kind of talking about what it means to, and today we're going to unpack what it means to believe. Will you believe or will you deny? And at the heart of belief, sometimes our brains in this world goes into, we want to talk about evolution versus creationism. And we want to talk about, is God's heart good? And what does that mean with the existence of evil? And we can go down a lot of rabbit trails about concepts and here's the thing, I think that there's a place for that, but that's not, when we talk about belief today, that's not what we're talking about. That's like this part. But the question for today is, will you be able to believe in something bigger that will drive your life and will form your life and will allow you just this confidence and this peace? Most of you right now, the anxious lives that you live, I'm just going to be honest, it's because you don't believe your dad. You don't believe what he says about you. You're not positive that he always loves you. And you're not sure that if he put you in a lineup of people that he would absolutely choose you. You're not so sure that he wouldn't be better served to choose somebody else because you know who you are. And it's just so interesting to me because as a dad, let me just tell you some dad stories. So I remember going with Noah to the doctor for the very first time. And you guys don't know what this is like, but you take this little thing that came out and you're like, woo, and you just love them with fire and you're like watching them move and you never thought you could watch something that small for that many hours, but you're like, I kept thinking he was gonna stop breathing, doesn't matter, but I'm just like, watching him, I'm like, you are like a little dude and you have like a soul that's like forever. And you just got baked. And like, this is incredible. This is amazing. You have little hands and you have a spleen in there somewhere. And like, it just amazes me. But then I remember taking him to the doctor for the very first time. And this haggard woman, not really, she comes in and she wants to give my son shots. And I'm about to beat this woman down. And I'm like, I'm not joking, she comes in and I know, my brain says he needs shots. You gotta give him the shots. It's gonna happen, this is normal. It's normal for some strange woman to come in with a long needle and stick your tiny child and inject them with fluid. That's normal. And so I remember her coming in and honest, I had to leave the room. Because I couldn't take my, isn't that terrible? I had to leave the room. I'm like, my wife's like, you cannot punch the nurse. She's a nice lady. I'm like, she is not nice. Did you see the way she looked at him? Like, did you see him cry? Like, I have this thing, and I have this defense mechanism for them, and I always champion them, and I believe them, and I want the best for them. And the older they get, the more that this fire, because I know who they are, and it starts to grow, and I love them. I want good things for them. I choose them. I would choose them. I love you all. I would choose them every day over you. Every day. And so when I see things like when my wife climbed in bed with my daughter Ava, and she was little, or sitting in her room, and she's starting to be aware. She's 8 years old. She's starting to be aware that, you know what, she is loved and that there is a God and that she has a relationship with him, but she also recognizes that she's let me put it this way, she started walking into the light realizing that there are these things in her life that are like the things that God wants, and they're the things that God longs for, and they're the things that make her who she's going to become. But then there are these other parts. Anybody know there's other parts of life? There are these other parts that we're not proud of. We talked about it last night. We talked about it yesterday, that there's these dark parts of us. And so, yes, we want to walk in the light. But even those of you that walked in the light yesterday, you're recognizing when the light comes on, it's great and it's scary. Because all of a sudden, when the light's on, we realize all the things. Yeah, that's great, and He is love, and He shows them. But then you recognize more fully all the things that are wrong and broken. Ava started recognizing that she's not always kind. She started recognizing, like the boys, when they do something, I'm like beating, not really, but like I have to ground them. I have to be really tough with them, and like that's boys. And with her, I just look at her wrong. She just starts crying, and I'm like, I'm sorry. And every time her heart is so tender and so pure, and so she was sitting in her bed and she was talking with Ava, or with my wife, and my wife came and told me the story afterwards, and they were just sitting there laying, and Ava they're reading, and they just got done reading a story, and they're praying, and then Ava just looked at her. She's 8 years old. She said, Mom, can we talk? My wife is like, yeah. She just started bawling. She goes, Mommy, I just feel so bad. I've done so many wrong things. I've treated people poorly. Like you said one mean word today. Like, she just feels this guilt, and she says, I just don't think God could ever love me. And we're like, and my wife is like, oh, girl. Like, and here's where this gets a little funny, okay? And let me root this in pastors. Sometimes we walk in the light and we're in the light, but once you step into the light, we've got to deal with something today. And that is now. Now that you're in the light, you're going to recognize your actions. Now that you're in the light, you're going to recognize your feelings, and you're going to recognize that in the light, you don't look as good as you did in the darkness. And that's when shame comes in. A lot of times that's when some of you came to things like this. You made big decisions, you stepped in the light, and then you went home and you realized, I'm not who I was there, and so then I must not be loved. I must not be His. And you just start trailing off. And so I just love this in 1 John 3, in verse 19. Let me just read this, and it just says, it's continuing in chapter 3. It says, our actions will show that we belong to the truth. So we will be confident when we stand before God. And I just want you to know, when you know who the Father is, this is crystal clear. We talked about this. This is how it works. When you know who God is and you know who you are, your actions will take care of themselves. Now, some people, we need to tell you, over time, like not always tomorrow, but it will. The more you know, when you know and you can trust your dad and you understand the way he feels for you, you will, if you trust him, over time, you will start to love people. You will start to see an output in your life that lines up with what his heart is, and you'll have absolute confidence. Absolute confidence when you talk to him. Absolute confidence when you step out of bed in the morning, you wonder what life's going to be like and what's going to happen. You have this boldness, this confidence. He says, you can be confident, but then he says this, but even if we feel guilty, he says God is greater than our feelings. He knows everything. He says, here's what I know about everybody in the room. I know that there are your actions and your feelings, they don't line up. I know that there are these actions, and now we've just talked about and we said it, and that's why I said we're gonna have to have a like part B to this conversation. Yesterday I said, if your actions don't line up, if you're not actively loving, if you're not actively pursuing, if you're not actively, then it tells a lot about who you really are. And don't be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. And so if you live in the darkness, understand that's where your life is headed. But if you live in the light, and if you love, and if you care, and if you have compassion, if you leverage your life for something, then understand that you're really living the light. But a lot of us know that our actions don't line up. So when they don't, how do we feel? And there's that slippery thing, right? We're like, well, are our actions ever going to be enough? I mean, is that what God wants? Is that what, like we just have to go through all the actions, all the right motions? And so some of you in here, and there can be a fear, you start thinking, okay, I need to do kingdom work. I need to do things. I need to do stuff. And so you go, I need to do more. I need to do more. I need to do more. And you'll do more. And you'll never really know him. That scares me to death because Jesus says on the end of the days, there's going to be this line, there's going to be a group of people, and some of them he's going to look at them, and he gives two stories in the end, and they're different ones. One is about what you do, and one is a bunch of people who did things, and he's going to mix these two metaphors all the time. He's going to say, it's not just about what you do, it's about your heart. But he's going to say, but it's not just about your heart, it's about what you do. Anybody else confused? And so he just says, here's what I want you to know. He says, even if we feel guilty, God is greater than our feelings, and he knows everything. And so next passage it says, dear friends, if we don't feel guilty, we can come to God with bold confidence, and we will receive from him whatever we ask because we obey him and we do the things that please him. And he just says, and hear that, if you don't feel guilty, if you understand something, and we'll get to, let me just, if you can get away from this thing called shame and guilt, then we can come to God with bold confidence. We can live life with confidence. And here's what happens. When that happens, you receive things from him. He's like a good dad. He just showers things down on you and blessing and favor, and not like stuff, but like his presence to like get you through and to give you power and to do kingdom things. And you'll receive anything that you ask because you obey him and you do the things that please him. And then he says the verse after this, and he says, and this is his commandment, we must believe in the name of his son, Jesus Christ, and love one another just as he commanded. And the word believe, I know, it's gotten super watered down. And he says, here's the thing. I want to deal with the fact that a lot of you in the room think that doing good stuff is what, I know you don't say it, but you're thinking that if I can just do the right stuff, that I'll get in and that I'll please him. And there are other people that say, well, it's not about what you do. And this has always been the battle. It's been almost every note. It's this other thing where it's not about our actions. We don't really need to care about what pops out. We just need to feel the right ways. And so we'll just come in rooms, and no matter what's going on in our lives, we'll just come in here and we'll just worship, and it's all good. But somewhere in between, there's a Father's heart that loves you, that knows you. And he says, if and we take this phrase, we believe in the name of, we believe in his son Jesus, and we think that is like we believe he's real. But belief is so different in this time and season. Belief is you put your identity in. It's like when they would baptize people, you would take your life and you would say, I used to be this way, but now I'm dying to my old self, and I'm raising up because I now know that life is different, that I'm placing myself under the truth or under the identity of the person that's baptized me. And Jesus is one of those things where he says, man, here's the thing, when I talk about belief, I'm saying I want you. Like your actions are going to come and your heart is going to do this. But hear me. When it comes to believing and denying, here's what I need you to believe. That just like Jesus painted, he is your Father. God is your dad, and he loves you. He has plans for you. He's not mad at you. He doesn't need your actions. As a matter of fact, your good deeds are not what pleases him. I know my kids, and I watch my kids, and they're always trying to please me, and they're always trying to make me happy. But do you think that's why I love them? I love them because they're mine. I love them because they're my kids. I love them because they matter. And so somehow, when I'm figuring all this out, all in my brain, I start to have these doubts. Anybody else have doubts? Doubts about whether, because sometimes my actions don't line up. So I'll write a big one I don't want to write. When I lust, I start wondering if God could ever love somebody like me. You know what? I was a former abused kid, and so I have a real hard time sometimes, even today, sometimes receiving people's like that people really care or that people like, because so much of my life was void of that. And so sometimes it's hard for me to receive. Like, am I loved? Really? Do people love me because of what I do, or do they love me because of who I am? Because some of you will settle with being loved for what you do, but it doesn't last. I mean, do people love me because of my talent, or do people love me because that's just who I am? Do people love you because you're pretty, or do they love you because of who you are? And you are dating person after person, wondering, and when it comes to God, you're doing the exact same thing. You're saying, is he pleased with me? Am I doing enough? Sometimes I have these doubts about whether he really exists. Am I the only one? Sometimes I look at this world, and I remember being in Jerusalem. Literally, I go there quite a bit. And in Jerusalem, I remember they're like packing up shop, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching all these people come in with different faiths and different thoughts about who God is. And sometimes in my mind, and this is healthy, this is normal, this is growing up in the family of God, you are going to have doubts. But what happens when you have doubts? You know, sometimes, and I could share story after story where God's, planted me in the right place, and I've been on an airplane, or I've been in the gym, or I've been a neighbor, and I've watched people come to Christ, come to Christ, come to Christ, come to Christ, come to Christ. And then there are so many other moments that I don't preach about, and they're the times when I'm just selfish. And I don't know where that comes from. And I see an opportunity. I see somebody I'm supposed to love. I see somebody I'm supposed to sit down next to. I know I'm supposed to. And you know what I say? Not today. But here's the thing, man. You pack in a month of these days, and your feelings start to say, man, you're not real. You're not legit. You're not a real believer. You're not a real Christian. You're just like everybody else. You're just full of it. And so I have all these questions. I have all these doubts. I have anxieties about, is this the, and here's the thing that God says. Yeah, I know. But hear me. You need to believe me. I'm your dad. I'm your dad. And when you, and we'll talk about this more tonight, and you're going to talk about this in your groups, and God's just going to hopefully really open this up in your heart and mind and life all day today. When you really believe that God is a dad, and that he is not your father because of what you've done, and he is not distant because of how you feel towards him. He's your dad. And he loves you exactly as you are. He would choose you in a lineup. He's pleased with your eyes and your smile, with your laugh, with the way that you walk, with some of the things that you do awkwardly. When my kids do things awkwardly, it makes it more cute. I think it's more endearing. Some people will knock one of my son's ears. I look at him and I'm like, that is exactly who God made you. And I love that he is not like everybody else. But a dad knows you, a dad loves you. And when you begin to believe that, and hear me, you go, yeah, I know I'm loved. No, you don't. If you really knew that you were loved by him, if you really knew that he chose you, if you really knew that he was pleased with you, so much of your life would be different. You wouldn't live so much of your life in denial over what the plans that he has for you and what he wants to do in your life. See, when you really trust a dad, and I always think about this is the picture that I have in my mind. This is Luke on the front porch. And so many of your lives they're anxious, and they're running, and they're tired. And you've got highs, you've got lows, and sometimes you feel like you're close to God, then you feel like you're not close to God, and then you work really hard, and you do stuff at your school, and then you kind of have seasons where you don't really work hard, and you don't really do this, and you don't really do that, and the whole time you're sitting there going like balancing, am I his, am I liked, am I loved, am I centered, am I this, am I that, and these doubts and these anxieties, and it just plagues. And here, I'm just telling you, as a friend, he's your dad. And the moment you believe that he went through great expense, that he gave his one and only son, shed his blood, watched the whole time as people spit and mocked and beat and ridiculed him the whole life because his great love, this love that he has lavished on you, is unlike anything else in existence. And when you believe that, some of your running, anxious, social media stricken, lonely hearts you'll finally rest. You'll finally rest, and we long for that rest in your life. He longs for you to rest and to know the way he sees you.